The truth doesn't break you, my friends. It breaks the fantasy you were taught to believe. That's the part nobody warns you about. People think heartbreak is the moment someone leaves, but the real heartbreak, the real earthquake, is the moment you finally see what was actually happening, the moment the lies fall apart, the moment their behavior makes sense in a way that hurts and heals at the same time. And today, my friends, we're going to talk about that moment, the part they hope you never notice. Let's start with this hook. What they fear most after hurting a good man isn't losing him. It's realizing he was the one thing in their life they couldn't replace. Hey folks, imagine this for a second. Imagine you're holding a balloon, bright red, shiny, floating right above your hand. You think you'll hold it forever. You think it'll always be there, right within reach. But the moment you loosen your fingers, even by mistake, it slips away and rises faster than you can grab it. That's what happens when someone hurts a good man. They think he's a balloon tied to their wrist. They think he'll float around them forever. They don't realize he was never the balloon. He was the air that kept it rising. And when he's gone, suddenly everything feels heavier. Suddenly they can't breathe the same. Suddenly the world that felt effortless becomes loud, confusing, and empty. You see, my friends, people tell you lies about men like you. They say, good men finish last, or good men get walked over, or, my personal favorite, being a good man is boring. That's nonsense. That's emotional junk food. That's the kind of lie people swallow when they don't want to face the truth. Hurting a good man is easy. Recovering from losing one is not. The fun part? They don't realize it right away. At first, they act unbothered, confident, cool, like nothing happened. But give it time, give silence, enough room, and reality will tap them on the shoulder like, hey, remember that man who actually cared? Yeah, you let him go. As one old quote says, not everything you lose is a loss, but some losses will haunt you. And my friends, a good man is exactly that kind of loss, the kind you don't understand until you're lying awake at 2 a.m., replaying every moment like a movie you can't turn off. The kind that makes you wonder why the world suddenly feels colder. The kind where the jokes don't land the same, the nights feel longer, and the company of other people feels just a little too loud, a little too empty. Funny how that works, right? But here's where it gets powerful, because this isn't really about them. This is about you. This is about realizing that someone hurting you doesn't make you weak, that someone misunderstanding your heart doesn't make your heart any less valuable, that someone choosing chaos over your peace doesn't mean you weren't enough. It simply means they weren't ready for the kind of man who doesn't need to raise his voice to be powerful, the kind of man whose silence is stronger than their excuses. The kind of man who loves deeply, honestly, fully. And that is rare, folks. Rare things scare people. Rare things get mistreated by those who don't know how to hold them. But you, my friend, are not here to become smaller for anyone's comfort. You're not here to fold yourself into shapes that fit someone else's lack of vision. You're here to rise, to grow, to become the version of yourself that even your past self wouldn't believe. And before we dive deeper into this truth, I want you to write this affirmation in the comments. I choose my worth, because that's your turning point. Type it in, claim it. And if you haven't already, make sure you like this video and subscribe, because what's coming next will open your eyes in a way silence never could. Stay with me. Number 1. The fear of realizing you meant more than they admitted. They don't fear losing you at first, my friend. They fear the day it finally hits them who they actually lost. That's the punch nobody is ready for. Not them, not you, not even the people watching from a distance thinking, they'll be fine, they'll move on. Because in the beginning, it all looks so easy on their side, doesn't it? They look relaxed, unbothered, almost proud of the way they walked away from a good man. They shrug off your presence, like it was just another chapter, just another experience, just another story they'll tell later. But deep down, buried under that performance, a quiet fear is already forming. The fear that one day they will wake up and finally understand you were never just another man in their life. Imagine this with me, folks. Imagine someone walking through a museum full of priceless art, but they're scrolling on their phone the whole time. They rush past masterpieces without even looking up, barely glancing at the colors, the detail, the history right in front of them. They leave thinking, yeah, I went to that museum, it was all right. But years later, they see one of those paintings in a documentary and suddenly realize the value of what they stood in front of and ignored. That's what it feels like when someone hurts a good man. In the moment, they think, I'll find better. I deserve more excitement. I'm not losing anything. But life has a funny way of replaying what we didn't appreciate. One day, something reminds them of you. Your calm voice, your patience, your way of listening when no one else did. And that's when the museum hits them. They weren't just wandering around. They walked away from something priceless. And here's where the questions start attacking them in the quiet places of their mind. Why did I act like he didn't matter that much? Why did I brush off his effort? Why did I treat his loyalty like it was basic? At first, they'll fight these thoughts. They'll say to themselves, it wasn't that deep, or we weren't that serious, or he was just too much. Those are the lies they cling to. Because if they admit you meant more than they said, they also have to admit something else. They mishandled something real. And most people, my friend, are terrified of seeing themselves as the villain in their own story. So they rewrite the narrative in their head. They tell themselves you were too emotional, too available, too soft, too understanding, as if those were flaws. They'll joke with their friends, he was a nice guy, but... and then fill in the blank with excuses to protect their ego. But slowly, very slowly, reality starts scraping away at those excuses. When life hits them with surface-level connections, flaky people, empty conversations, and short-term thrills, something in them shifts. They start to remember the difference between being entertained and being understood. And you, my friend, were the one who understood them. You never realize how loud fake energy is until you lose the one person who made you feel quiet inside. That's the quote their soul bumps into when the noise around them gets too overwhelming. They'll be surrounded by people, laughter, attention, maybe even validation, but it doesn't land the way it used to when they were talking to you. Because you weren't just reacting, you were present. You weren't just trying to impress them, you were trying to understand them. You weren't just there when it was fun, you were there when it got heavy. And that's what they fear recognizing, that you carried emotional weight for them they never acknowledged. Why is this realization so difficult for them to face? Because it shatters the comfortable lie that good men are easy to replace. They were raised on that lie. Social media, friends, sometimes even their own ego told them, if you lose one, another will show up tomorrow. But a good man isn't a notification that pops up again if you swipe it away. A good man is a chapter that can't be rewritten once it's closed. They fear understanding that you were not just an option. They fear realizing you were the turning point and they turned the wrong way. And my friends, you might wonder late at night, did they ever really care? Did I ever actually matter? That's the pain talking, not the truth. The truth is, your value doesn't disappear because someone was blind to it. A diamond doesn't stop being a diamond because someone used it as a paperweight. Their inability to see your worth doesn't mean it wasn't there. It just means they weren't ready or willing to meet a man at that level of depth. That's not your failure. That's their limitation. But I get it. It's hard to rise above that. It's hard not to internalize their behavior. You start asking yourself, if I mattered so much, why did they treat me like I didn't? And that's where you have to break the lie in your own mind, too. People don't always treat you based on your worth. They treat you based on their maturity, their emotional capacity, and their level of self-awareness at the time. You were showing up from your heart. They were showing up from their wounds. You were loving from wholeness, or at least from effort. They were reacting from fear, ego, and maybe even selfishness. You weren't too much. You were just too real for the level they were operating on. Here's the beautiful part, my friend. Their fear, yes, their fear, isn't just about losing you. It's about facing the version of you they might see later, the version of you who healed, the version of you who leveled up, the version of you who no longer needs their validation to feel complete. That version of you becomes the proof that they weren't dealing with just another man. You become the quiet evidence that they misjudged something sacred. That's what terrifies them, because once you rise, they can't pretend you were basic. Once you glow, they can't convince themselves you were forgettable. You show them, you show yourself. You show the world around you what happens when a good man stops begging to be seen and instead decides to see himself. And that's where I want you to move, my friend, from questioning to claiming, from was I ever enough to I was always enough. They just weren't ready. I want you to take this moment and flip the script. Their fear of realizing your value is not your burden to carry. Your responsibility now is to grow into the version of you that makes that truth undeniable. Not out of revenge, not to prove anything to them, but to prove something to yourself. So here's your affirmation, and I want you to write it in the comments. Type it out like a declaration. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you. I was never optional. Let it sink in. You were never a backup plan. You were never a filler chapter. You were the blessing they didn't have the wisdom to keep. And as we move forward, stay with me, because what's coming next will open your eyes to an even deeper fear they carry, the one that truly keeps them up at night after hurting a good man. Number 2, the fear of being replaced by his peace. They never really fear losing you to another person, my friend. They fear losing you to a version of yourself that no longer needs them. That's the part that creeps up on them slowly. At first, they might think, he'll find someone else eventually, and they brush it off. That doesn't really scare them. People come and go all the time. What really shakes them is when they realize you didn't rush to replace them with another relationship. You replaced them with something far more powerful, your peace. Because deep down, nothing competes with a man who looks genuinely calm in his own skin. Imagine this for a moment, folks. Picture an apartment right after a wild party. There are bottles everywhere, music still echoing in the walls, crumbs on the floor, and that heavy feeling in the air. It looks like fun happened there, but it doesn't feel good to stay in. Now imagine that same place a week later. Clean, organized, soft lighting, a candle burning, quiet music playing in the background. You walk in and your shoulders drop. You breathe easier. The chaos is gone. That's what happens inside your life when you finally let go of the person who hurt you and create space for peace. They were the party. You became the home. And here's what they're afraid of. You're not interested in inviting them back into that calm. At first, they convince themselves you're struggling without them. They imagine you scrolling through old conversations, staring at the ceiling at night, feeling broken. That image comforts their ego. It lets them feel important. They'll come back. They always do, they tell themselves. But then something strange happens. They check your page one day and you don't look broken. You look lighter. You look focused. Your captions sound clearer. Your energy feels different. You're not posting to impress them. You're not throwing indirect quotes or emotional bait. You're just grounded. That's when the fear starts whispering in their ear. Wait, why do they look better without me? Peace is the one thing you can't fake, and the one thing they never expected you to find without them. They thought you'd move on to another person, but you moved on to another level. They expected rebound energy, not rebirth energy. And that difference cuts deep. Because if you had rushed into another relationship just to distract yourself, they could have told themselves, "See, they're still running from their pain." But when you sit with your pain, learn from it, and quietly grow, they have to face the truth that you didn't just lose them, you found you. Why does this scare them so much? Because your peace reflects something very uncomfortable back at them, their lack of it. While you're becoming more still inside, they're still chasing noise. While you're choosing better habits, better boundaries, better standards, they're repeating old patterns with new people. And every time they feel confused, drained, or disappointed again, a thought flashes through their mind. It didn't feel like this with them. That thought is the part they don't say out loud. That's the fear talking. My friends, a good man's peace is dangerous to anyone who thrives on emotional chaos. When you were with them, you made room for their storms. You softened their anger. You absorbed their moods. You tried to understand their confusion. You gave them a safe place to land. But when they hurt you and you finally stopped offering that space, something shifted. Now, instead of you regulating their emotion, they're stuck alone with it. No soft landing, no calm voice, no grounded presence to lean on. They feel the difference, whether they admit it or not. People love to say they're afraid you'll find someone better, but that's not the highest fear. The real fear is that you'll become someone better, someone who no longer opens doors for their drama, someone whose life has become so peaceful their name doesn't fit in it anymore. That's the fear that keeps them checking your profile at random hours. That's the fear that makes them ask mutual friends how you're doing while pretending they don't really care. They're not just curious, they're measuring how far your peace has taken you. And I know there's a part of you that might still wonder, do they even notice? Do they even care that I've changed? Listen to me, my friend. They notice change more than they ever acknowledged your effort. They might not compliment it. They might not clap for it. But they feel it. They feel it in the way your energy no longer bends when they appear. They feel it in the way your responses, if you choose to respond, are calm and short, not bleeding with emotion. They feel it when they throw emotional bait and you don't bite. Your peace tells them more about their place in your life than any speech could. It won't be easy reaching this point. Your mind will drag you back sometimes. You'll remember the good parts. You'll replay the laughs, the late-night talks, the little rituals. You'll think, was it really that bad? That's normal. Healing isn't linear or glamorous. It's messy. It's quiet. It's you choosing not to text when everything in you wants to. It's you going for a walk instead of stalking their page. It's you learning how to be okay with nothing happening. But that's exactly how peace is built. small choice by small choice, day after day. And here's the beautiful twist. The more you fall in love with your calm, the less space you have for their chaos. The more you enjoy waking up without anxiety, the less tempted you are to reopen old doors. Your peace becomes your filter. It keeps out what once drained you. And that, my friend, is what they fear most. Not that you hate them, but that you've outgrown needing them. So here's your affirmation for this part of the journey, and I want you to write it in the comments. Let the world see it. Let yourself see it every time you scroll back. My peace replaces them. Type it out. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that you are not chasing noise anymore. You are protecting your calm. And as we move forward, stay with me, because what's coming next will reveal an even deeper layer of their fear, the part they desperately try to hide behind their silence. Number 3, the fear that their silence didn't crush you, it made you stronger. They thought going silent would control you, my friend, but what truly scares them is realizing it only awakened you. That's the part they didn't plan for. When someone hurts a good man, one of their favorite tricks is silence. Pull back, disappear, respond late, leave messages on read. They convince themselves that by withdrawing attention, they're holding the power. They believe, if I say nothing, I win. If I ignore him, he'll chase. If I stay distant, he'll stay hooked. But what they never expect is that one day you stop waiting on their words and start listening to your own. Imagine this with me, folks. Imagine a volume knob on a speaker. At first, their voice is at full blast in your life. Constant noise, constant stimulation, constant up and down. Their attention feels like music. Their withdrawal feels like static. Then one day, life reaches over and turns that volume down, lower, 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 until it clicks to 0. At first, you panic. You think, where did the sound go? What did I do? Why is it so quiet? It's uncomfortable. It's strange. The silence feels like a punishment. But slowly, something else appears in that quiet. You start hearing your own thoughts more clearly. Your own needs, your own intuition. Their silence, which they thought would crush you, accidentally created the space you needed to find yourself. They fear that more than anything. They fear the moment you stop obsessing over what they're not saying and start paying attention to what their silence actually means, because the lie they want you to believe is simple. If I'm silent, you'll feel smaller. You'll feel desperate. You'll chase me. But the truth hits different when you sit with it. If their silence can destroy you, it means your power was in them, not in you. And once a good man realizes that, it flips the whole script. You stop viewing their silence as a verdict on your worth and start seeing it as a reflection of their emotional immaturity. Let's be real, my friend. In the early days, their silence hurts like hell. You replay everything. You think, what did I say wrong? Should I have been cooler? Should I have reacted differently? You stare at your phone. You check if they viewed your story. You analyze half responses, emojis, timing. You give their absence more attention than you ever gave your own feelings. That's the trap. That's the emotional maze they expect you to stay trapped in. Because as long as you're stuck there, they keep the upper hand without lifting a finger. Silence is not always a sign of strength, folks. Sometimes it's just a disguise for cowardice. That's the part you begin to see over time. You realize their silence isn't noble. It's not mature distance. It's avoidance. It's them dodging accountability. It's them protecting their ego from having to admit they hurt someone who actually cared. And when that clicks in your mind, something starts shifting in your chest. You stop thinking, "Why aren't they talking to me?" and start thinking, "Why am I giving so much power to someone who can't even communicate like an adult?" Why is it so hard to reach this point? Because, my friend, you were taught a lie too. You were taught that if someone pulls away, you must run after them to prove you're not the problem. You were taught that if someone goes silent, you need to break the silence to show you care. You were taught that being a good man means always reaching out, always fixing, always smoothing things over. But that's not strength. That's emotional over-responsibility. That's you trying to do the work for two people, and a relationship built on one person carrying all the weight will always break eventually. When you finally stop chasing that silence, they feel the energy shift. You don't send that long paragraph. You don't reply instantly. You don't ask, "Is everything okay?" for the 10th time. You don't beg for clarity. They're clearly unwilling to give. Instead, you start matching their energy with calm detachment, not playing games, not mirroring pettiness, just no longer over-investing where they under-communicate. That's when their own silence starts turning on them. Now they're the ones sitting with questions. Why aren't they asking what's wrong anymore? Why didn't they double text? Why does their last reply sound so composed? Their ego, which once felt tall and invincible in the quiet, suddenly feels small. Because silence only feels powerful when the other person is scared of it. Once you stop being afraid, once you stop dancing every time they press pause, silence loses its magic trick. It becomes what it always was: empty space. And here's what really terrifies them. They begin to realize your silence is different from theirs. Their silence was a strategy. Yours becomes a boundary. Their silence came from ego. Yours starts coming from self-respect. Their silence tried to control you. Yours starts to protect you. That's when the balance shifts without a single word spoken. You might worry, but if I stay silent too, won't they think I don't care? Listen, my friend, people who want to misunderstand you will always find a way. Your job is not to keep proving your heart to someone who keeps pretending they can't see it. Your job is to honor your energy, to say, if you choose distance, I'll choose direction. If you choose silence, I'll choose peace. You don't weaponize your silence. You just refuse to let theirs dominate your emotional world anymore. They thought their silence would freeze you in place. Instead, it became the starting line of your growth. You started going to the gym more consistently. You focused on your work. You picked up hobbies you'd abandoned. You reconnected with friends. You stopped living in reaction mode and started living in creation mode. Your life began to move, and nothing scares someone who wants you emotionally stuck more than seeing you emotionally moving on. So here's your truth. Their silence did not break you. It revealed you. It showed you where you were giving too much. It showed you where you ignored your own needs. It showed you where you confused their inconsistency with your responsibility. And now you get to do something powerful with that information. I want you to anchor this in, my friend, not just in your mind, but in your actions. Your affirmation for this part of the journey is simple, but it holds weight. And I want you to type it in the comments like a stamp on your story. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you. My silence is strength. Let it be a reminder that you don't have to scream to be powerful. You don't have to chase to prove your value. As we move forward, stay with me. Because what's coming next will take this even deeper. We're going to step into the part that truly rattles them. When you stop needing their apology and start becoming the man they never believed you could grow into without them. Number 4. The fear of watching you become the man they thought they'd work on later. They didn't really plan to lose you, my friend. They planned to put you on hold and come back when you were upgraded. That's the quiet truth most people will never admit. When they hurt a good man, they don't always see it as a final goodbye. In their mind, you're on some emotional shelf, waiting, staying available, staying loyal, staying stuck. They imagine you as this unfinished project, someone they might fix, shape, or take seriously someday. Not now, not while their ego still wants attention, chaos, and games. Later, when they're done playing, when life humbles them, when they're finally ready. But here's the part that terrifies them. Life doesn't wait for their timing, and neither do you. Imagine this, folks. Picture an old, dusty car sitting in someone's driveway. It runs, it's reliable, but they never wash it, never service it, never appreciate it. They keep saying, one day I'll fix it up, give it a proper polish, upgrade it. Just not now. So they keep using it without care, taking it for granted every single day. Then, one morning, they wake up, step outside, and the driveway is empty. At first, they're irritated. Who took my car? Then they see it weeks later, shiny, fully restored, owned by someone who actually valued it. New paint, new wheels, new life. It doesn't just work. It shines. That shock in their chest, that's what they feel when they see you evolving without them. In their mind, you were supposed to wait while they figured themselves out. You were supposed to stay emotionally parked, quietly available, always open, always ready if they ever decided to try again. They thought, they'll still be there. They're a good man. He won't move on that fast. He'll understand. They underestimated you. They confused your loyalty with stagnation. They treated your patience like it meant you had nowhere else to go. But a good man who finally chooses himself is not stuck. He's in motion. And motion, my friend, scares people who were counting on your stillness. They didn't realize they were rejecting the blueprint of the very man they thought they wanted in the future. That's the quote life hands back to them when they see you leveling up. Because let's be honest, they liked the idea of you, just not the responsibility of you. They liked your kindness, your stability, your consistency, but they weren't ready to match it. So instead of saying, I'm not mature enough for this yet, they told themselves, he's not exciting enough. Or, I want something different right now. It's easier to label you as not enough than to admit they're not ready for something real. Why does watching you evolve scare them so much? Because it destroys their favorite backup fantasy, the idea that they can circle back whenever they feel like it. When they see you getting fitter, more focused, more confident, more at peace, that fantasy cracks. When they see you dressing better, speaking clearer, laughing from a real place instead of a wounded one, they realize something chilling. You were never stuck at their level. You were just being gentle enough to meet them there. Now that you're climbing, they can't reach so easily. And let's talk about you for a second, my friend. You probably had those nights where you thought, maybe if I just wait, maybe they'll come back different. Maybe they'll see my worth. Maybe they'll fix it one day. You held on to potential. You fell in love with what this could become in 5 years, not what it actually was right now. That's how good men end up staying too long, hoping someone will rise to meet them instead of accepting that they're not climbing at all. So when you finally decide, I can't sit here anymore, I need to grow with or without them, that decision is not just powerful for you, it's terrifying for them. Because now the questions start hitting them in the quiet moments. Why did I think I had time? Why did I treat him like a practice round? How did I lose someone who was willing to give me the very life I say I want now? They see you moving differently. Maybe you started that business. Maybe you're hitting the gym regularly. Maybe you've healed enough that your eyes don't carry that same tired pain. They notice the way you stand, the way you speak, the way your presence feels less desperate and more defined. You went from wanting to be chosen to choosing yourself. That evolution is what keeps them up at night. Here's the lie they were living in. I can break this and still come back later once they've leveled up. It's wild, but some people really believe they can hurt you, leave you, watch you heal, and then return to enjoy the upgraded version of the person they broke. They want the healed, confident, self-aware you, built by the pain they caused, and they still want to sit in the front row of that success. But life doesn't work like that. You don't get to burn a bridge and then complain that you can't cross it when the view looks better on the other side. This is why your growth is non-negotiable, not to make them jealous, not to get revenge, but to honor the man inside you that always existed beneath the doubt, beneath the heartbreak, beneath the over-explaining. Every time you choose progress, you prove that their inability to value you did not define you. You were a good man before them, during them, and now you're becoming an even stronger one after them. So when they see you walking into rooms with quiet confidence, when they hear about your new habits, when they notice that your energy isn't orbiting them anymore, something twists inside. It's not just regret, it's a realization. Realization that the man they thought they could come back to later is no longer standing still, waiting. He's gone, not vanished, not bitter, just far beyond the version they once had easy access to. And I want you to hear this clearly, my friend. You are allowed to become the man they thought they'd meet later, without them. You're allowed to grow into your full potential and not offer them a seat in that chapter. You're allowed to say, "You had access to my unpolished version and chose to mistreat him. You don't get to enjoy the refined version now." That's not cruelty. That's alignment. Your affirmation for this part of the journey is powerful, and I want you to write it in the comments. Let it be a message to them, to yourself, and to the world around you. I outgrow who misused me. Type it out. Let it echo back to you. Because as we go forward, stay with me. What's coming next will dive even deeper into their fear, not just losing you, but watching someone else receive the very love, loyalty, and stability they were too blind to respect. Number 5, the fear that someone else will receive what they took for granted. What they treated like too much with you, my friend, will be exactly what they pray for in someone else. That's the line life throws back at them when the truth finally catches up. They didn't just lose a good man, they lost the version of themselves who had access to a love they weren't ready for. And the fear that really grips them isn't just that you're gone, it's that everything you once offered so freely will one day be given to someone else. Someone who didn't have to go through the chaos, the confusion, the disrespect. Someone who steps into the healed version of you they never thought you'd become. Imagine this for a second, folks. Picture a person sitting in a restaurant with a plate of food they barely touch. They poke at it, complain it's not seasoned enough, say it's all right, nothing special. So they push it away, send it back, or leave it half-eaten. The next person sits at the same table, gets the same dish, takes one bite and goes, "Wow, this is exactly what I've been looking for." Same plate, different appetites, same meal, different levels of appreciation. That's what happens when they walk away from a good man. What they pushed aside as too soft, too stable, too emotional becomes the exact thing someone else recognizes as rare, valuable, and worth protecting. And that reality scares them more than they'll ever admit. They'll tell themselves at first, "I can find that again. There are plenty of people like that." That's the lie the ego loves. The belief that good, genuine, loyal connections are on every corner. But time has a way of exposing the lie. They go out, they meet new faces, they flirt, they get attention. Maybe they even jump into something new quickly just to prove to themselves they've moved on. But something feels off. The conversations stay surface level. The jokes don't feel as safe. The affection feels more like performance than presence. And somewhere in the middle of that, a quiet thought creeps in. It didn't feel like this when I was with them. You only realize someone gave you more than you deserved when you start getting exactly what you give. That's the quote life uses to humble them. Because eventually they meet a version of themselves out there. Someone who mirrors their own inconsistency, their own distance, their own games. Suddenly, they're the ones overthinking, waiting for replies, feeling like they're not enough. That's when the memory of you hits harder than ever. The way you checked in, the way you listened, the way you were patient when they were moody, the way you made room for their fear without mocking it. All the things they brushed off as normal now stand out as extraordinary. Why is the thought of someone else receiving that so painful for them? Because deep down, they know you didn't just give love, you gave potential. You inspired them to be better, even if they didn't rise to it. You believed in parts of them they didn't yet see. You forgave things most people would walk away from. When they imagine someone else standing in the space they once occupied, receiving your full attention, your full loyalty, your upgraded self-respect, it presses on one of their deepest fears. Replacement, not just in your life, but in your story. They start asking themselves questions in the silence they created. What if someone else gets the softened, healed, wiser version of him? What if he takes all that love he gave me and pours it into someone who actually protects it? What if the things I called too much become exactly what makes someone else feel safe? That's not just jealousy, that's realization. Realization that they misjudged the value of what they had in their hands. And you, my friend, might feel this from the other side. You might have those moments where you think, if I become better, if I grow, won't it hurt if they see me giving all of this to someone else? Or even worse, do I even want someone else? What if I can never trust like that again? That's your fear talking. The fear of loving again after being mishandled. The fear of your heart being treated like a trial run. It's hard to move forward when your past keeps whispering, they didn't value you. What if no one will? But here's the thing you need to remember. You weren't too much. You were just too early for someone who wasn't ready. Someone being unprepared doesn't make your love a problem. It just means they weren't the final destination. They were the lesson. The person who took you for granted taught you where your standards needed to rise. The person who hurt you prepared you to recognize who truly deserves you. The pain sharpened you, not to become cold, but to become clear. There is someone out there, whether it's a partner, your future self, or the life you're building, that will fully receive what they mishandled. And that is exactly what disturbs them beneath the surface. Not just that you'll love again, but that you'll love better. That you'll give your best self to a world they're no longer centered in. That your laughter, your growth, your kindness, your emotional presence will become someone else's everyday reality and their distant memory. They may not say it, but they'll feel it. When they see you smiling in a genuine way, when they hear you speaking with more confidence, when they notice your eyes don't carry that same weight, when they realize they are no longer the story behind your sadness, but a footnote in your evolution. That's when the fear hits full force, because now your existence proves a truth they didn't want to face. You were always going to be okay, with or without them. You, my friend, are not here to keep your heart on pause because someone was careless with it. You're here to continue becoming, to continue learning, to continue refining what you offer, not dimming it. The answer is not to love less. The answer is to love wiser, to choose people who are emotionally ready to recognize what you bring, to give your effort where it is met, not drained. Your journey forward is not a punishment to them, it's a reflection of you, a testimony that being hurt did not turn you into them. It didn't turn you cold, manipulative, or bitter. It made you intentional. It made you selective. It made you more aligned with who truly deserves you. So here's your affirmation for this chapter, and I want you to write it in the comments. Let it echo for you. Let it echo for them. Let it echo for the world watching your growth. My love won't be wasted. Type it out. Stand on it. Because as we move into what comes next, stay with me. We're going to uncover an even deeper fear they carry. Not just that someone else will receive your love, but that you will look in the mirror one day and finally see what you were always worth without needing anyone to confirm it. Number 6, the fear of facing themselves without his softness to hide behind. You weren't just in their life, my friend. You were the cushion between them and the truth about themselves. That's the part that stings when it finally hits. When they hurt a good man, it's not just his presence they lose. It's the emotional shield he unknowingly gave them. While you were there, your kindness softened reality. Your patience made their rough edges less noticeable. Your understanding made their chaos feel less destructive. But when you step away, they're left with something they never wanted to confront, themselves. And that is one of their deepest fears. Let's paint a picture, folks. Imagine a room with a cracked mirror covered by a beautiful curtain. As long as the curtain is there, the mirror looks fine. No one sees the cracks. No one notices the damage. People walk in, compliment the curtain, admire how it looks, and walk out thinking everything is perfect. You, as the good man, were that curtain. Your softness, your forgiveness, your ability to absorb their moods, it all kept their broken pieces from being too visible, even to themselves. But when they hurt you enough times, and you finally walk away, it's like that curtain gets pulled down. Suddenly, they're standing in front of that mirror alone. No softness in front. No shield. Just the raw reflection of who they really are and what they've done. That's what makes their chest feel heavy when the silence grows long. While you were there, they could say, "I'm not that bad. Look, he stays, he forgives, he understands." Your presence became their excuse. If I was really the problem, he wouldn't still be here. That's how they avoided growth. That's how they avoided accountability. You made their behavior livable. You made their patterns survivable. Your softness turned their roughness into something they could ignore. Not because you were weak, but because you cared. Because you thought that loving someone meant protecting them from their own reflection. Sometimes the kindest people are the ones who delay someone else's breakdown. That's a hard truth. You didn't realize it at the time, but your compassion slowed down their confrontation with themselves. You patched wounds they didn't want to admit were self-inflicted. You calmed storms they created. You gave reassurance where there should have been responsibility. You kept saying, "It's okay, we'll figure it out," even when you weren't the one causing the damage. When you finally leave, their fear isn't just, "I lost a good man." It's, "I lost the person who made me feel like I wasn't as bad as my actions." Without you there to soften the impact, their words hit harder in their mind. The way they handled arguments, the way they dismissed your feelings, the way they chose pride instead of humility. It all starts playing back with no comforting voice in the background saying, "It's all right, I understand." Now, the only voice they hear is their own. And it's no longer a flattering echo. They might try to distract themselves at first. New people, new places, new routines. They'll laugh louder, post more, stay busier, but it's like wearing perfume in a room that still smells like smoke. Eventually, the truth creeps back in. They start to notice patterns. Why do I keep pushing away people who care? Why do I always feel restless? Why am I never at peace? Those are the questions your absence leaves behind, because the softness you gave them wasn't just comfort, it was a contrast. With you gone, their harshness no longer has anything to hide behind. This is why seeing you move on, heal, and grow can hit them so deeply, because now the comparison isn't between you and them. It's between who they were with you and who they still are without you. You're improving. They're repeating, you're evolving, they're circling, and deep down, something inside them whispers, maybe they weren't the problem after all. Maybe I was. That whisper is their fear speaking. Ego hates that sentence. Ego will do anything not to fully accept it. And let's be honest, my friend, you did a lot of emotional work for both of you. You were the one saying, "Let's talk." You were the one reaching out first. You were the one calming arguments, apologizing even when you weren't fully wrong, giving benefit of the doubt, making excuses for their behavior. That's what good men do too often. They carry the emotional load quietly. And as long as you're doing that, the other person doesn't have to grow. Why would they? You're doing the heavy lifting. But when you finally put that weight down, everything changes. Now, if they want healthy love, they have to show up differently. They have to communicate. They have to work on their triggers. They have to face their childhood wounds, their ego, their fear of vulnerability. That's not fun. That's not easy. That's not comfortable. And many people are more afraid of inner work than they are of losing a good person. You may still feel guilty sometimes. You might think, did I abandon them? Did I give up too soon? Could I have helped them more? That's the good man's curse, thinking it's his job to fix what someone else keeps breaking. But hear this. Walking away from being someone's shield is not betrayal. It's self-respect. You were never meant to be the permanent cushion between them and their own growth. At some point, life needs them to feel the full impact of their choices so they can finally change, and your absence is part of that impact. The beautiful part for you is what happens next. Once you stop hiding them from themselves, you stop hiding yourself too. You start to see the ways you overgave, the ways you minimized your own hurt, the ways you allowed behavior you knew deep down didn't sit right with your spirit. That recognition doesn't feel good at first, but it's the beginning of your own transformation. You stop being the soft landing for other people's damage and start being the solid ground for your own healing. So here's what I want you to claim, and I want you to write it in the comments, not just as words, but as a line in the sand, letting them, yourself, and the world around you feel it. I won't hide your damage with my softness. Type it. Own it. You are done being the curtain over someone else's broken mirror. As we move forward, stay with me, because what's coming next dives into another powerful truth. The fear they carry when they realize your trust, once broken, is not something they can ever just casually walk back into again. Number 7. The fear that he will never trust them again. Once a good man's trust breaks, my friend, it doesn't shatter loud. It disappears quietly into a place they can never reach again. That's the fear that grips them long after the arguments end, long after the messages stop, long after their pride stops performing for the outside world. Because deep down, beneath all the denial, beneath all the excuses, beneath all the stubborn ego, they know one truth they don't want to look in the eye. They didn't just lose the man, they lost the access. Trust is a rare thing with good men. They don't hand it out casually. They don't attach it to flattery or fake promises. When a good man trusts you, he lets you into rooms inside him that he's spent years guarding. He shows you the childhood wounds he never talks about. He lets you see his insecurities, his fears, his dreams, his unfiltered thoughts. He lets you see the softness he hides from the world, because the world taught him softness gets punished. So when someone breaks that trust, they aren't just breaking a relationship, they're breaking into a part of him he never planned to rebuild twice. Imagine this, folks. Imagine you're holding a glass globe, a fragile, beautiful, delicate piece of art. You don't throw it, you don't slam it, you just drop it. Not hard, just carelessly. Maybe you thought it wouldn't break, maybe you thought it would bounce, but it doesn't. It cracks. And here's the thing. The cracks don't scream, they don't explode. They spread slowly, quietly, invisibly, and by the time you notice them, it's already too late. That's what happens when they damage a good man's trust. It doesn't break in one dramatic moment. It fractures silently until one day he looks at the relationship and realizes, I can't feel safe here anymore. And my friends, once he no longer feels safe, something inside him shuts off. Not with anger, not with revenge, not with spite, but with clarity. A good man doesn't go around trying to punish you. He doesn't yell, I'll never trust you again. He just doesn't. He pulls that trust back into himself, into the locked part of his heart, where he stores the things too precious to risk again. That's when fear starts creeping in on their side. What if he never opens up to me again? What if he never looks at me the same? What if he forgives me, but doesn't trust me? And here's the truth they struggle with. Forgiveness and trust are not the same. A good man can forgive you from a place of wisdom. A good man can release the anger. A good man can wish you well. But trust is not something he rebuilds just because someone suddenly realizes they want it back. This is where their fear grows into something heavy, because they know you aren't petty, you aren't dramatic, you aren't vindictive. That makes the loss of your trust hurt even more. If you were the kind of person who explodes, who insults, who slams doors, they could tell themselves they're emotional, they'll get over it. But a good man's silence, a good man's distance, a good man's steady, calm detachment, that's different. That's final. That's the kind of ending people don't recover from easily. Why is this so difficult for them to accept? Because somewhere deep inside, they thought they could always win your trust back whenever they wanted. They thought their apology, if they ever gave one, would magically reset the story. They assumed you would blindly trust again just because your heart is naturally forgiving. But they underestimated something powerful: growth. Because once a good man grows from the betrayal, he sees the relationship with different eyes. He sees the moments he ignored his intuition. He sees the red flags he minimized. He sees how he kept rationalizing pain because he believed in potential, and that recognition reprograms him. Now he doesn't just guard his heart, he honors it. Now he doesn't just trust because he loves, he trusts because it's earned. Now he doesn't just give access, he evaluates who can handle it. They fear that version of you, my friend, the version who doesn't hand out trust like a habit, the version who listens to the quiet warning signs, the version who will never again confuse attachment with loyalty, and the deepest fear of all, the fear that even if they show up at your door tomorrow, soft voice, humble eyes, I've changed, I swear, you'll look at them not with anger, but with neutrality, not with resentment, but with wisdom, not with longing, but with closure. Neutrality is a heartbreak they never prepared for, because neutral means you're not angry. You're done. Neutral means you're not emotional. You're healed. Neutral means they can't reach inside you anymore. A good man who no longer trusts you is a man who no longer needs you to define him. And once trust dies, attraction fades. Once trust dies, emotional connection dissolves. Once trust dies, the version of you that once existed for them dies too. So here's what I want you to claim right now, and I want you to write it in the comments like a declaration of your new chapter, letting the world feel it, letting your future self read it one day. My trust is sacred. Type it, claim it, own it. Your trust is not cheap, it is not casual, it is not replaceable. And as we close this final section, my friends, if this message touched something inside you, something deep, something honest, take a moment to support the channel. Like this video, subscribe for more, and share it with someone who needs this truth today. Because your healing deserves to be seen. Your strength deserves to be honored, and your journey, my friend, is just getting started.